The moment you lose everything, there is a moment that changes everything. A split second where power shifts from one person to another. It happens in the space between accusation and response. Someone challenges you, questions your character, doubts your intentions, attacks your reputation, and in that moment almost everyone makes the same fatal mistake. They defend themselves. I did not mean it that way. You misunderstood me. That is not who I am. Let me explain. The words pour out automatically, like a reflex you cannot control, and with each word you lose more ground. With each explanation, you surrender more power. With each defense, you prove exactly what your accuser wanted to prove all along, that you are weak enough to need defending. This is the brutal truth that most people never understand. The moment you defend yourself is the moment you admit you are vulnerable to judgment. The moment you explain yourself is the moment you accept that someone else has authority over you. The moment you justify your actions is the moment you hand control of the narrative to your attacker. And once that control is lost, no amount of reasoning will get it back. Think about the most powerful people you have encountered. Not the loudest, not the ones who argue the most, not the ones who constantly explain themselves. The truly powerful, the ones who command respect without demanding it, the ones who influence without trying, the ones who make you question yourself just by looking at you. What do they all have in common? They never defend themselves, never explain, never justify. They simply exist with such absolute certainty that accusations bounce off them like rain off stone. This is not natural. This is not how humans are wired. We are social creatures programmed to care what others think. We evolved in tribes where being cast out meant death. So defending our reputation, explaining our actions, justifying our choices, these feel like survival instincts. But they are not instincts anymore, they are weaknesses. And in the modern world, these weaknesses are exploited constantly by people who understand what you are about to learn. Defending yourself does not make you look innocent. It makes you look guilty. Explaining yourself does not create clarity. It creates doubt. Justifying yourself does not prove your worth. It diminishes it. Because only people who doubt themselves feel the need to convince others. Only people who are insecure feel compelled to explain. Only people who lack power feel obligated to defend. But there is another way. A way that requires you to unlearn everything you were taught about fairness, honesty, and clearing your name. A way that requires you to embrace something far more powerful than truth, mystery. When you refuse to defend yourself, when you remain silent in the face of accusation, when you let attacks pass through you without reaction, something extraordinary happens. You become untouchable, not because people believe you are innocent, but because they cannot figure you out. And what cannot be understood must be feared. What cannot be predicted must be respected. What cannot be manipulated must be avoided. This is the foundation of real power, not the power to convince, but the power to remain unconvinced that you need to convince anyone. This book will teach you that power. The power of silence in the face of accusation. The power of stillness when everyone expects reaction. The power of mystery when everyone demands explanation. You will learn how to turn accusations into mirrors that expose the accuser. How to use strategic disappearance to psychologically annihilate your enemies. How to build an aura so powerful that others defend you without being asked. How to live so far above the need for approval that judgment becomes meaningless. But understand this from the beginning. This path has costs. You will be misunderstood. You will be judged. You will be accused of things you did not do. And you will have to live with that. You will have to be strong enough to let false narratives exist without correcting them. You will have to be secure enough to be seen as the villain without defending yourself as the hero. You will have to value your internal strength more than external approval. Most people cannot pay this price. They would rather give up power than live with being misunderstood. They would rather defend themselves and look weak than remain silent and be judged. They would rather have everyone like them than have a few truly respect them. But you are not most people. You picked up this book. You are searching for something more. And that search has led you here, to the most dangerous social strategy ever created, the strategy of never defending yourself. Are you ready to stop explaining yourself? Are you ready to stop seeking validation from people who do not matter? Are you ready to become the kind of person whose silence speaks louder than others' words? Then let's begin. Because the moment you stop defending yourself is the moment you start controlling everything. The moment you embrace silence is the moment you gain real power. The moment you stop needing approval is the moment you become truly free. Welcome to the silent revolution. Welcome to absolute power. Welcome to never defending yourself. Chapter 1. Why defending yourself is the ultimate weakness. Let's destroy a lie you have believed your entire life. The lie that says defending yourself makes you look innocent. The lie that says explaining yourself creates understanding. The lie that says justifying yourself proves your worth. These are not just false beliefs. They are traps designed to keep you powerless. And every time you defend yourself, you walk deeper into the trap. Here is the truth that no one tells you. When someone accuses you, they are not looking for truth. They are looking for a reaction. They want to see you squirm. They want to watch you scramble. They want to hear desperation in your voice as you try to explain yourself. Because that reaction is what they are really after. That reaction is proof that they have power over you. That reaction is confirmation that their opinion matters to you. And the moment you give them that reaction, you have lost. Defending yourself is an admission that you care what the accuser thinks, an admission that their judgment has weight in your mind. An admission that you feel the need to justify your existence to them. And once you make that admission, once you signal that their opinion matters, you have handed them control. They are now the judge. You are now the defendant. And in that dynamic you have already been convicted. Because only guilty people need to defend themselves. Think about how this plays out in reality. Someone accuses you of being arrogant. What does the average person do? They immediately defend themselves. No, I am not arrogant. I am just confident. I do not think I am better than anyone. I just know my worth. Every single word of that defense makes them look more arrogant. Because truly confident people do not need to explain their confidence. Truly secure people do not need to justify their self-worth. Truly powerful people do not need to convince anyone of anything. But the person who remains silent when accused of arrogance, They do something different. They hold the accusation in the air. They let it hang there. They do not confirm it. They do not deny it. They simply exist with such calm certainty that the accusation begins to look foolish, and the person who made the accusation begins to feel uncomfortable because they expected a fight. They expected a defense. They expected to see weakness. Instead, they encountered a wall, an unmovable, unshakable wall that gives them nothing to work with. This is the first principle of power. Never give people what they expect when they attack you, because what they expect is a defense. What they expect is an explanation. What they expect is a sign that you care about their opinion. And when you refuse to provide that, when you refuse to play the game they set up, you flip the power dynamic entirely. Now they are the ones who look obsessed. Now they are the ones who look insecure. Now they are the ones who appear weak, because you did nothing. You said nothing. You simply remained still while they exhausted themselves trying to provoke you. But why is defending yourself so damaging? Why does it create the opposite effect of what you intend? The answer is psychological. When you defend yourself, you are operating from a frame of guilt. You are accepting the premise that you might be what they accused you of. You are acknowledging that their judgment has merit. Even if your words say, "I am not guilty," your actions say, "I care enough about this accusation to address it." And actions speak louder than words. Always. This is why innocent people who defend themselves too aggressively often look guilty. Think about high-profile cases where public figures are accused of something. The ones who immediately go on press tours explaining themselves, justifying their actions, providing evidence of their innocence, they almost always look guilty. Not because they are, but because their behavior signals guilt. Guilty people need to convince others. Innocent people simply exist in their innocence without needing validation. Now think about the public figures who are accused and simply remain silent. They do not address it. They do not explain it. They do not defend against it. They continue living their lives as if the accusation never happened. What happens? The accusation loses power. It fades. It becomes irrelevant. Because an accusation without a response is like a fire without fuel. It cannot sustain itself. It dies out naturally. But an accusation that is met with defense, with explanation, with justification, that accusation is given oxygen. It is kept alive by your attention. And it grows. This is the paradox of defense. The more you defend yourself, the more you need to defend yourself. Because each defense invites more scrutiny. Each explanation raises more questions. Each justification creates more doubt. You think you are clearing your name, but you are actually making it dirtier. You think you are proving your innocence, but you are actually creating suspicion. You think you are taking control of the narrative, but you are actually giving control to your accuser. Let's examine the mechanics of this more closely. When you defend yourself, you accept the frame that has been set. Someone accuses you of something. By defending against that accusation, you are implicitly agreeing that the accusation is worth addressing. You are agreeing that the accuser has the right to judge you. You are agreeing that their opinion matters. And once you agree to those premises, you are operating in their world, playing by their rules, fighting on their territory. And when you do that, you have already lost. But the person who refuses to defend, the person who remains silent, they are doing something far more powerful. They are rejecting the entire frame. They are saying, I do not accept your right to judge me. I do not acknowledge your authority to demand explanation. I do not agree that your opinion has any relevance to my life. And they say all of this without saying anything at all. Their silence is the statement. Their stillness is the answer. Their lack of reaction is the most powerful reaction possible. This creates a psychological crisis for the accuser. They expected engagement. They expected a fight. They expected to be taken seriously. Instead, they were treated as irrelevant. Their accusation was not even worth acknowledging. Their judgment was not even worth considering. Their opinion was not even worth the energy of a response. And that treatment, that complete dismissal without a word, is devastating, because it strips them of the one thing they wanted most, your attention. Attention is power. Whoever has attention has power. When you defend yourself, you give your attention to your accuser. You make them important. You validate their right to question you. But when you withhold that attention, when you refuse to acknowledge their accusation, you keep the power. You make yourself important. You validate your own right to ignore them. And that shift is everything, because now you are operating from a position of power while they are operating from a position of desperation. The average person does not understand this. They think defending themselves is standing up for themselves. They think explaining themselves is being honest. They think justifying themselves is proving their worth. But all of these actions come from a place of weakness, from a place of caring too much what others think, from a place of needing external validation to feel okay about themselves. And that need is the weakness that others exploit. Strong people do not need external validation. They validate themselves. Strong people do not need to convince others. They are convinced of themselves. Strong people do not need to defend against accusations. They are so secure in who they are that accusations literally do not penetrate. Not because they have thick skin, but because they have no need for your opinion to confirm their reality. They know who they are. They know their worth. They know their truth. And your judgment is irrelevant to all of that. This is what you must become. Someone who does not need anyone else's validation. Someone who does not care what anyone else thinks. Someone who is so internally complete that external judgment cannot touch them. And the first step to becoming that person is to stop defending yourself. Stop explaining yourself. Stop justifying yourself. Because every defense is evidence that you still need approval. Every explanation is proof that you still doubt yourself. Every justification is confirmation that you still care too much. So what should you do instead when accused? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Let the accusation exist. Let it float in the air. Let the accusers sit with their own words. And watch what happens. Watch how they become uncomfortable. Watch how they start to doubt themselves. Watch how they begin to look weak instead of you. Because they are talking to themselves now. They are arguing with silence. And silence always wins. Chapter 2. The psychology of silence and why it breaks people's silence is not the absence of communication. Silence is the most powerful form of communication that exists. Because when you remain silent, you force other people to fill the void with their own fears, insecurities, and projections. And what they fill that void with reveals everything about them, while revealing nothing about you. This is the ultimate information asymmetry. You learn everything. They learn nothing. And information asymmetry is power. When someone accuses you and you remain silent, they expect a response. They have prepared for an argument. They have rehearsed counterpoints. They have imagined how you will defend yourself. Their entire emotional energy is geared toward engaging with your defense. But when that defense never comes, when you give them nothing to work with, their entire preparation becomes useless. All that energy has nowhere to go, and so it turns inward. They start arguing with themselves, fighting with themselves, exhausting themselves, and you did nothing. This is the first psychological effect of silence. It creates internal conflict in the other person. They thought they were entering an external battle. But because you refuse to engage, the battle becomes internal. They start questioning their own accusation. Did I overreact? Did I misunderstand? Did I make myself look foolish? These questions erode confidence. They create doubt. They weaken resolve. And the longer your silence continues, the stronger these doubts become, until eventually they convince themselves that they were wrong. Not because you convinced them, but because they convinced themselves. This is power, real power. The power to make someone defeat themselves without fighting them. The power to win a battle without entering it. The power to dominate an interaction by refusing to participate in it. Most people think power is about what you do, but the highest form of power is about what you do not do, what you withhold, what you refuse to give. And when you withhold a response, when you refuse to give people the engagement they crave, you become the most powerful person in the room. Let's examine why silence is so psychologically destabilizing. Humans are pattern-seeking creatures. We need to understand cause and effect. We need to predict behavior. We need to make sense of the world around us. And when someone does not respond the way we expect them to, it creates cognitive dissonance. Our brain cannot process it. We cannot categorize it. We cannot file it away neatly. So we obsess over it. We replay it. We try to figure it out. And that obsession is a form of control. Not their control over us. Our control over them. Because we are occupying their thoughts without being present. This is the second psychological effect of silence. It creates obsession. When you do not respond to someone, they cannot stop thinking about you. They cannot stop wondering why you did not respond. They cannot stop analyzing what your silence means. And the more they think about you, the more power you have over them. Because attention is power. And you now have all of their attention without giving any of yours. This is the ultimate power imbalance. They are fixated on you while you have moved on completely. Now let's talk about the different types of silence and their psychological effects. There is passive silence, which comes from fear or avoidance. This type of silence is weak. It communicates that you are too afraid to respond. It signals that you are hiding. It suggests that you have something to be ashamed of. This is not the silence we are cultivating. This is the silence of weakness, and people can sense it. Then there is aggressive silence. This is silence that has weight, presence, energy. This is silence that communicates power rather than fear. This is silence that says, I am not responding because I choose not to, not because I cannot. This is silence that makes people uncomfortable, not because it is empty, but because it is full of certainty, full of confidence, full of the implication that you are so far above the accusation that it does not even warrant acknowledgement. This is the silence we are developing, the silence of absolute power. How do you create aggressive silence? Through your body language, through your facial expression, through your energy. When you remain silent in the face of accusation, you must remain physically calm, not tense, not awkward, not avoidant, calm, still, grounded. Your silence must be deliberate, not reactive. Your lack of response must appear conscious, not fearful. Your refusal to engage must seem like a choice, not a weakness. And when you achieve this, when your silence radiates power rather than fear, it becomes a weapon. Think about the last time someone gave you the silent treatment. How did it make you feel? Probably anxious, probably uncertain, probably desperate to know what they were thinking. That is the power of silence. It creates a vacuum that the other person feels compelled to fill. They start reaching out. They start explaining themselves. They start apologizing for things they did not even do, all because they cannot handle the discomfort of not knowing. And that discomfort is control. You control them through your absence, through your silence, through your refusal to give them the resolution they crave. But here is the critical distinction. Your silence cannot be a game. It cannot be manipulation for the sake of manipulation. It must be genuine. It must come from a place of real indifference, because people can sense authenticity. They can tell when you are pretending not to care versus when you genuinely do not care. And only genuine indifference creates the psychological effect we are after. Only real internal strength makes silence powerful. Fake silence is just passive aggression. Real silence is absolute power. So how do you develop genuine indifference? You build internal strength. You develop self-validation. You create a life so fulfilling that external judgment becomes irrelevant. You cultivate a sense of self so strong that other people's opinions literally do not penetrate. This is not easy. This requires deep work. But it is the only way to make your silence truly powerful. Because powerful silence comes from powerful internal reality. And powerful internal reality comes from doing the work to validate yourself instead of seeking validation from others. When you have built this internal strength, your silence becomes natural. It is not a strategy you have to remember. It is just who you are. Someone who does not need to respond because they do not need anyone's approval. Someone who does not feel compelled to explain because they are secure in their own truth. Someone who does not react to accusations because accusations have no power over someone who is internally complete. This is the goal, not to perform silence, but to become silence, to embody it so completely that it is automatic. And when you reach this level, when your silence is genuine and powerful, something extraordinary happens. People start to defend you without being asked. They start to speak up on your behalf. They start to challenge accusers for you. because your silence communicates such absolute confidence that others feel compelled to validate what you refuse to validate. They feel the need to protect what appears so unshakable. They feel drawn to defend what seems so certain, and you did not ask them to. You did not manipulate them into it. They did it naturally because your silence created a vacuum, and they filled it with defense on your behalf. This is the ultimate power of silence. It not only protects you from your enemies, it activates your allies without you asking. It creates social proof without you seeking it. It builds your reputation without you managing it. Because when you remain silent and others speak for you, their words carry more weight than yours ever could. Because they are not self-defense. They are third-party validation. And third-party validation is infinitely more powerful than self-defense. So master silence, not as a tactic, but as a way of being. Master the art of remaining still when others expect reaction. Master the discipline of withholding response when others demand it. Master the strength of genuine indifference to external judgment. Because when you master silence, you master power itself, the power to remain unmoved, the power to let others exhaust themselves, the power to win without fighting. That is true mastery. Chapter 3. Turning the accusation into a mirror, there is a level beyond remaining silent, a level where you do not just refuse to defend yourself. You actually use the accusation itself as a weapon against the accuser. You turn their attack into a mirror that reflects their own weakness back at them. This is psychological judo, using their force against them, making their strength become their weakness, and when executed properly, it is devastatingly effective. Let's start with the fundamental principle. Every accusation is a projection. When someone accuses you of something, they are revealing something about themselves. Not always, but often enough that you can use this as a strategic assumption. The person who calls you arrogant is usually insecure about their own confidence. The person who accuses you of being manipulative is usually frustrated that they cannot manipulate you. The person who says you think you are better than everyone is usually struggling with feeling worse than everyone. Their accusation is their confession. You just have to know how to make that visible. This requires a specific type of response, not a defense, not an explanation, but a reframe. A reframe takes the accusation and changes what it means. Instead of accepting the frame that you are arrogant, you reframe it as them being uncomfortable with confidence. Instead of defending against the claim that you are manipulative, you reframe it as their inability to influence you. The content of the accusation stays the same, but the meaning changes completely, and meaning is everything, because whoever controls the meaning controls the narrative. Let's walk through specific examples. Someone says you are so arrogant. The weak response is, no, I am not. I'm just confident. This is defensive. It accepts their frame. It gives them power. But the powerful response is, interesting that confidence makes you uncomfortable. Notice what just happened. You did not deny being arrogant. You did not defend your confidence. You simply observed their discomfort. And in doing so, you made the accusation about them, not you. You turned the mirror. Now they are the subject being examined. Now they are the one who feels defensive. Now they have to explain themselves. Another example. Someone accuses you of being manipulative. The weak response is, I am not manipulative. I am just strategic. Again, defensive, accepting their frame, giving them power. But the powerful response is, people always say that when they cannot influence me. What did you do? You reframed their accusation as frustration with their own powerlessness. You made their attack reveal their weakness. You turned their weapon back on them. And you did it calmly, without emotion, without defensiveness, just a simple observation. That is the key. Observations are more powerful than defenses. Let's try another. Someone says you think you are better than everyone. Weak response, no, I do not. I do not think I am better than anyone. Defensive, weak, accepting their frame. Powerful response. You seem really focused on comparing yourself to others. Again, you reframed. Their accusation revealed their comparative mindset. Their attack exposed their insecurity. Their words became a confession, and you made that visible without directly accusing them of anything. You just held up a mirror, and mirrors do not lie. This technique works because it shifts the burden of defense. When someone accuses you and you defend yourself, you bear the burden of proof. You have to prove you are not what they say you are. But when you reframe their accusation as a revelation about them, they suddenly bear the burden of defense. They have to prove they are not insecure, not powerless, not comparative. And that shift is everything. Because now they are defending themselves. Now they are explaining themselves. Now they are the ones who look weak, and you did not have to attack them directly. You just turned their attack into a mirror. But this only works if you deliver it correctly. The delivery is critical. If you say these things with anger, with spite, with obvious retaliation, it backfires. It looks like you are rattled, like you are defensive, like they got to you. But if you deliver these reframes with complete calm, with genuine curiosity, with detached observation, they land with devastating force. Because now you are not fighting them. You are analyzing them. And being analyzed by someone who is calm while you are emotional is deeply uncomfortable. It creates a power imbalance that is impossible to recover from. Let's talk about tone. Your tone must be neutral, not aggressive, not defensive, not sarcastic, just neutral. As if you are a scientist observing a specimen. As if you are a therapist listening to a patient. As if you are genuinely curious about the psychology behind their accusation rather than offended by it. This tone communicates that you are not affected, that you are operating from a place of security, that you are so far above their accusation that you can afford to be curious about it rather than threatened by it. And that positioning is power. Body language matters too. You must remain physically still, no fidgeting, no tension, no defensive posture, open body language, relaxed shoulders, steady eye contact. Your body must communicate the same thing your words communicate, that you are unbothered, that you are secure, that you are simply observing rather than defending. Because if your words say one thing and your body says another, people will believe your body. Always. So your entire being must radiate calm certainty when you deliver these reframes. Now let's talk about when to use this technique versus when to remain completely silent. This is a judgment call. If the accusation is minor and the person insignificant, complete silence is often more powerful. But if the accusation is public and the audience matters, a well-placed reframe can be more effective, because silence in private is powerful. But silence in public can sometimes be misinterpreted as guilt. So in public settings, especially when there are witnesses whose opinion matters, a single precise reframe can do more work than prolonged silence. The key is to make your reframe devastating enough that it does not need follow-up. One sentence, one observation, one mirror held up, and then silence. You do not explain your reframe. You do not justify it. You do not elaborate on it. You say it and then you stop. You let it hang in the air. You let everyone process it. And you remain silent while they do. This combination of a precise reframe followed by absolute silence is almost impossible to counter, because you gave them something to think about but nothing to argue with. You made a point but not an argument. You turned the mirror but you did not attack. And that restraint is what makes it powerful. Let's examine why this is more effective than direct counterattack. If someone accuses you and you counterattack by accusing them of something, you escalate the conflict. You create a battle. You make it about who can hurt who more. But when you simply reframe their accusation as a revelation about themselves, you do not create a battle. You create an observation. And observations are harder to fight than accusations, because observations seem objective. They seem neutral. They seem like you are just noticing something rather than attacking. Even though the effect is the same or more damaging than a direct attack, this is the art of the mirror. It allows you to strike without appearing to strike. It allows you to wound without appearing to wound. It allows you to dominate without appearing to dominate. And that subtlety is what makes it effective, because people can defend against direct attacks, but they struggle to defend against observations. They can argue with accusations, but they struggle to argue with mirrors. Because mirrors just reflect, they do not accuse. They do not judge, they just show. And what they show is often more damaging than anything you could say directly. So practice this skill. When someone accuses you of something, pause. Think about what their accusation reveals about them, and then calmly reflect that revelation back to them. Make their attack become their confession. Make their words reveal their weakness. Make their accusation become a mirror, and then remain silent. Let the mirror do its work. Let them sit with what they just revealed about themselves, and watch how the power shifts without you having to defend, explain, or justify anything. That is mastery. Chapter 4. Strategic disappearance and psychological annihilation. There is a move beyond remaining silent in someone's presence. It is removing your presence entirely. Strategic disappearance. When someone attacks you and you not only refuse to defend yourself, but also refuse to even acknowledge their existence, you perform something far more devastating than any defense or counterattack could achieve. You erase them from your reality, and that erasure is psychological annihilation. Think about what is worse than being argued with, being ignored. What is worse than being fought, being dismissed? What is worse than being defeated, not being considered worthy of battle in the first place? When you strategically disappear, you communicate something brutal and absolute. You are not important enough for my attention. Your accusation is not significant enough for my response. Your entire existence does not register in my world. And this rejection of someone's significance is more psychologically damaging than any insult you could deliver. Let's understand why this is so powerful. Human beings have a fundamental need to matter, to be seen, to be acknowledged. Even negative attention is better than no attention. Even being hated is better than being invisible, because hate proves you matter enough to evoke emotion, but indifference proves you do not matter at all. And that realization is existentially threatening. It attacks the core human need for significance. And when you strategically disappear, you weaponize that need. Here is how strategic disappearance works in practice. Someone attacks you, insults you, accuses you, and you do not respond. Not just in that moment. You do not respond ever. You do not address them. You do not acknowledge them. You continue living your life as if they never spoke, as if they do not exist. You do not block them. Blocking is a response. You do not talk about them to others. That gives them significance. You simply remove them from your mental and emotional world entirely. They become nothing, not an enemy, not even an annoyance, just nothing. What happens next is predictable. They expected a reaction. They expected engagement. They expected you to give them the satisfaction of knowing they affected you, but you gave them nothing. And that nothing is unbearable, so they escalate. They reach out again. They make stronger accusations. They try harder to provoke you. They post more. They talk to mutual contacts. They try desperately to extract any response from you, any acknowledgement that they still exist in your world. And with every attempt, they look more obsessed, more unhinged, more pathetic. Because now everyone can see what is happening. This person is screaming into the void, and the void is not screaming back. The void does not even acknowledge the screaming. The void has better things to do. And that observation, that public display of someone trying desperately to get a response from someone who will not give it, is social suicide, because it reveals the power dynamic. It shows who needs whom. It proves who is in control, and it is not the person who is trying. It is the person who is not responding. But strategic disappearance only works if it is genuine. If you are still thinking about the person, still bothered by their words, still checking to see if they have said more, you have not truly disappeared. You are still engaged. You are still giving them attention. You are still making them significant in your internal world, even if you are not responding externally. And that internal engagement will leak through your behavior. People will sense that you are affected, and the power of your disappearance will be lost. True strategic disappearance requires genuine indifference. You must actually stop caring. Not pretend to stop caring, not try to stop caring, but actually deeply, authentically stop caring about that person's existence. This is not easy. It requires that you have enough going on in your life that one person's opinion becomes genuinely irrelevant. It requires that you have developed self-validation to the point where external judgment does not penetrate. It requires internal strength that most people never build. But when you have it, when you can truly disappear someone from your reality, the effect is devastating. Let's examine the psychology of what happens to someone who has been strategically disappeared. First, they experience confusion. They expected you to react. When you do not, their mental model breaks. They do not understand, so they try again. When you still do not respond, confusion turns to frustration. They thought they mattered enough to provoke a response. Your silence suggests they do not. So they escalate, hoping that a stronger provocation will work. When that also fails, frustration turns to desperation. Now they are not trying to hurt you. They are trying to prove to themselves that they still exist in your world, that they still have some significance to you. And this is where it becomes pathetic, because now their attacks are not about you. They are about them, about their own need to feel relevant, about their own fear of being insignificant, about their own inability to accept that someone they targeted does not care. And everyone watching can see this. Everyone can see that this person is no longer attacking. They are begging for attention, begging for acknowledgement, begging for proof that they matter. And there is nothing more powerless than begging. Meanwhile, you have moved on completely. You are focused on your life, your goals, your growth. You are building, creating, developing. The person who attacked you does not exist in your mental space at all. Not as an enemy, not as a problem, not even as a memory. They are simply not there. And this complete absence of them in your life, while they remain obsessed with you, is the ultimate power imbalance. Because attention is power. And you have all of theirs, while they have none of yours. Now, let's discuss when to use strategic disappearance versus other strategies. If someone attacks you once and it is not significant, strategic disappearance is perfect. You simply never acknowledge it happened. You move on. You forget about it. And it dies naturally. But if someone attacks you repeatedly, if they make multiple attempts to provoke you, strategic disappearance becomes even more powerful. Because each unanswered provocation compounds the effect. Each failed attempt to get your attention reveals more of their desperation. Each moment of your continued silence increases their psychological distress. But there is a risk. In some contexts, especially professional or legal ones, complete silence can be misinterpreted. If someone is spreading serious lies about you that it could damage your career or relationships, strategic disappearance might need to be combined with other approaches. Perhaps a single public statement of fact followed by disappearance. Perhaps legal action followed by disappearance. The key is that you address the practical consequences without engaging emotionally. You handle the business side coldly and efficiently, and then you disappear emotionally. You refuse to give them the satisfaction of knowing they affected you beyond the practical response. Let's talk about how to maintain strategic disappearance when you share social circles with the person. This is challenging because you might see them at events, have mutual friends, operate in the same spaces. The solution is selective invisibility. You do not acknowledge them, but you do not avoid them either. Avoiding is a response. It shows they have power over your movements. Instead, you exist in the same space as if they are not there. You talk to everyone else. You engage with the environment. You are fully present. But they are not part of your reality. You look through them, not at them. You step around them, not away from them. You treat them like furniture. Present but insignificant. This is incredibly uncomfortable for them, because they can see that you are fine. They can see that you are social. They can see that you are engaged. But they can also see that you have erased them specifically, that you are choosing not to acknowledge them while acknowledging everyone else. And that selective invisibility is more damaging than general aloofness, because it proves that your indifference is specific to them, that you have made a conscious decision that they are not worth your attention. And that decision is visible to everyone. The art of strategic disappearance is in its completeness. It cannot be partial. It cannot be temporary. It cannot be strategic in the sense that you are planning to re-engage later. It must be absolute. This person has ceased to exist in your world forever, and that permanence is what makes it psychologically devastating, because there is no hope of resolution, no possibility of reconciliation, no chance for them to explain or justify or fix it. You have simply decided they are not significant enough to occupy any space in your life, and that decision is final. So master strategic disappearance. Master the art of erasing people from your reality. Master the discipline of genuine indifference to those who attack you. Because when you can truly remove someone's significance from your life, when you can truly treat them as if they do not exist, you possess a power that is rare and valuable. The power to reject someone's existence. The power to deny them the attention they crave. The power to prove through your actions that they do not matter. That is ultimate power. That is psychological annihilation. That is strategic disappearance. Chapter 5. Building an aura that makes others defend you. There is a level of mastery where you no longer need to defend yourself because others do it for you. This is the ultimate expression of social power. When your reputation, your character, your presence is so strong that people instinctively rise to your defense without being asked. When your aura is so powerful that attacks against you are met with resistance from the group before you even know they happened. This is not manipulation. This is natural consequence of how you carry yourself over time. And it is achievable if you understand the principles. The foundation of this power is consistency, not occasional moments of strength, but unwavering consistency in how you operate. When people know that you never defend yourself, when they have seen you remain calm under attack repeatedly, when they have witnessed you maintaining your composure regardless of provocation, they begin to internalize a model of who you are, and that model becomes your shield. Because when someone attacks that model, they are not just attacking you, they are attacking everyone's understanding of reality. And people defend their understanding of reality aggressively. Here is how this manifests practically. Someone attacks you publicly, maybe in a group setting, maybe on social media, maybe in a professional context. You do not respond. You remain silent, or you deliver one precise reframe and then disappear. And what happens? The people who know you, who have experienced your character, who understand your value, they step in. Not because you asked them to, not because you manipulated them into it, but because the attack contradicts their direct experience of you, and humans have a need for consistency. When reality contradicts their model, they defend the model. In this case, you are the model, and they defend you to defend their own understanding of who you are. But this only works if you have actually built that model in people's minds. If you are inconsistent, if you sometimes react emotionally, if you occasionally defend yourself, there is no clear model. People do not know who you really are. So when you are attacked, they do not know whether to defend you or not. They wait to see how you respond. They look for cues. They hesitate. But when you have been absolutely consistent in never defending yourself and remaining calm and holding power, silently people know exactly who you are, and attacks against that known quantity are met with immediate resistance. Let's talk about what creates this consistency. First, you must decide on your standards and never waver from them. What behavior do you accept? What behavior do you reject? What values do you embody? What principles do you follow? These must be clear to you and visible to others through your actions, not through your words. Words are cheap. Actions are expensive. So you must live your standards so consistently that people can predict your behavior. And predictability in character creates trust. People trust you not because they think you will do what they want, but because they know you will do what you believe, and that reliability is valuable. Second, you must provide genuine value to the people around you. Value is the currency of social capital. When you help people, when you contribute to their lives, when you make their existence better by being in it, you create a debt. Not a manipulative debt that you call in, a natural human debt that people feel compelled to repay. And one way they repay it is by defending you when you are attacked. Because losing you would mean losing the value you provide, so they protect you to protect themselves. This is not cynical. This is just human nature. People defend what benefits them, but the value you provide must be authentic. It cannot be transactional. It cannot be done with the ulterior motive of getting them to defend you later. It must be genuine contribution based on your values, your abilities, your character, because people sense authenticity. They know when someone is helping them to get something versus helping them, because that is who they are. And only authentic value creates the kind of loyalty that translates into unprompted defense. Third, you must never ask people to defend you. Never. The moment you ask, you weaken the defense, because now it is not their authentic response. It is a favor they are doing for you. It is a debt they are paying. It is a transaction, and transactions are weak. They can be refused. They can be negotiated. They can be withheld. But authentic defense that comes from people's own initiative, that is strong, because it is not about you asking. It is about them being unable not to. Their sense of justice, their experience of you, their understanding of reality compels them to speak. And that compulsion is more powerful than any request. Let's examine what this looks like in practice. You are in a meeting. Someone undermines you subtly, questions your competence, suggests you do not know what you are talking about. You do not respond. You remain calm. You let the comment sit. And then someone else in the meeting, someone who has worked with you, who knows your track record, who has seen your results, they speak up, not because you asked, but because the attack contradicted their experience. They say, actually, from what I have seen, they know exactly what they are talking about. Or they say, I have worked with them on multiple projects, and this is definitely their area of expertise. And suddenly you are being defended, not by yourself, but by third parties. And third-party validation is infinitely more credible than self-defense. Or consider a social media scenario. Someone posts something negative about you, attacks your character, makes accusations. You do not respond. You do not even acknowledge it. And then people who follow you, who have engaged with your content, who have seen how you operate, they start responding. They push back on the accusations. They provide counterexamples. They defend your character, and you never asked them to. You never even saw the original post, but they defended you anyway, because their model of you did not match the attack, and they defended their model. This is the power of building the right aura. It creates distributed defense. You are no longer a single point that needs defending. You are surrounded by people who carry a model of you that they will protect. And that distribution makes you nearly invincible. Because to truly damage you, an attacker would have to change not just your behavior, but everyone's model of you. They would have to convince everyone who has experienced you that their experience was wrong. And that is almost impossible if your consistency has been strong enough. But maintaining this requires discipline. One moment of breaking character can shatter years of built reputation. If you spend years never defending yourself and then one day you snap, you lose credibility. People think maybe he is not as composed as I thought. Maybe those attacks are getting to him after all. Maybe he is not as strong as he seemed, and their model updates, and their willingness to defend you decreases, because now they are not sure who you really are. So you must never break, never waver, never show weakness. The moment you do, the aura cracks. This is why developing genuine internal strength is so critical. Because you cannot fake this level of consistency. You cannot perform being unbothered for years without actually being unbothered. Eventually, the mask slips. Eventually, the performance fails. Eventually, the real you emerges. So the real you must be strong. The real you must be secure. The real you must not need external validation. Because only when that is genuinely true can you maintain the consistency required to build an aura strong enough that others defend you. So focus on consistency, focus on value, focus on authenticity, and never ask for defense. Build yourself into someone so reliable, so valuable, so consistent that people cannot help but defend you when you are attacked, not because they owe you, not because you asked, but because defending you is defending reality as they understand it. And people will fight to defend their understanding of reality. Make yourself that reality. Make yourself that model. Make yourself that standard. And watch how others defend you without you ever defending yourself. Chapter 6. The cost of defending and the price of freedom. Every choice has a cost. Defending yourself has a cost. Not defending yourself has a cost. The question is not whether you will pay a price. The question is which price you are willing to pay, and most people choose the wrong price. They pay the cost of defending themselves because it feels right in the moment. It feels like they are standing up for themselves, like they are being strong, like they are taking control. But that momentary feeling of control costs them something far more valuable. It costs them actual power. Let's examine the real cost of defending yourself. When you defend, you admit that the other person's opinion matters to you. You signal that their judgment has weight. You reveal that you need their approval, or at least their understanding. And once you signal that, you give them power over you, because now they know how to affect you. They know your buttons. They know that if they question you, accuse you, doubt you, you will respond. And response is control. Whoever can make you respond controls you. So every defense is a surrender of autonomy. Every explanation is a confession of dependence. Every justification is an admission that you are not self-sufficient. But there is another cost, a social cost. When you defend yourself, you look weak to observers. Not weak in the sense of being unable to defend. Weak in the sense of needing to defend. Strong people do not need to prove themselves. Strong people simply are, and everyone knows this intuitively. So when someone defends themselves aggressively, people think, what are they trying to prove? When someone explains themselves desperately, people think, why do they care so much what we think? When someone justifies themselves repeatedly, people think they must have something to hide. None of these thoughts help you. All of them weaken your social position. So the cost of defending yourself is twofold. You lose internal power by admitting dependence on external opinion, and you lose external power by appearing weak to others. This double loss accumulates over time. The more you defend, the weaker you become. The weaker you become, the more you need to defend. It is a spiral, a downward spiral that traps most people in a life of constantly justifying their existence to people who do not matter. Now let's examine the cost of not defending yourself. The obvious cost is that you will be misunderstood. People will judge you incorrectly. People will believe false accusations. People will have wrong impressions of you. And you will have to live with that. You will have to be okay with people thinking you are arrogant when you are confident. You will have to accept people thinking you are cold when you are boundaried. You will have to tolerate people thinking you are guilty when you are innocent. This is uncomfortable. This goes against every social instinct you have. This feels wrong, and that discomfort is the price. But there is another cost. You will lose relationships. Some people cannot handle you not seeking their approval. Some people need you to care what they think. Some people require that you explain yourself to them. And when you stop doing that, when you stop defending yourself to them, when you stop seeking their validation, they leave. They cannot handle your independence. They cannot accept your strength. They cannot tolerate your freedom, so they exit your life, and that loss feels real. It hurts. It creates loneliness. It makes you question whether you are doing the right thing. This is the price of not defending yourself, misunderstanding, and lost relationships. These costs are real. They are painful. They are immediate. And most people look at these costs and decide they are too high. They decide that defending themselves, seeking approval, maintaining relationships at the cost of power is the better deal. And they are wrong, because they are comparing immediate costs to long-term costs. And long-term costs always outweigh short-term discomfort. Here is why. Yes, you will be misunderstood if you do not defend yourself, but you will be misunderstood anyway. Defending yourself rarely changes people's minds. It just makes you look weak while being misunderstood. So you lose twice. You are misunderstood and you appear weak. But if you do not defend yourself, you are only misunderstood and you appear strong. So the misunderstanding happens either way. But in one scenario you maintain power, and in the other you lose it. Yes, you will lose some relationships if you stop defending yourself. But those relationships were dependent on you being weak. They were dependent on you seeking approval. They were dependent on you staying small. And relationships built on your weakness are not relationships worth keeping. They are prisons. They are chains. They are obstacles to your growth, so losing them is not a cost. It is a liberation. The people who leave when you stop defending yourself were never there for you. They were there for what they could take from you. And letting them go creates space for people who can handle your strength. So when you really examine the costs, the choice becomes clear. Defending yourself costs you power now and freedom forever. Not defending yourself costs you comfort now, but gives you power forever. The discomfort is temporary. The power is permanent. The misunderstandings fade. The strength remains. The relationships you lose were prisons. The relationships you build after will be real, but there is still resistance, still doubt, still the voice that says, but what if they really believe the lies? What if my reputation is destroyed? What if everyone thinks I am guilty? These fears are real, but they are based on a false premise. The premise that your reputation is something external, something that exists in other people's minds, something you need to manage and protect and defend. But that is not true. Your reputation is not external. It is internal. It is who you actually are. And who you actually are cannot be destroyed by accusations. It can only be destroyed by you becoming someone less than you are, by you shrinking yourself, by you defending yourself, by you giving away your power. When you remain strong, when you maintain your integrity, when you continue operating at your highest level regardless of what people say, your true reputation emerges. Not the reputation of public opinion, the reputation of actual results, of consistent character, of demonstrated value. And that reputation is unshakable, because it is not based on what people think. It is based on what is true. And truth has a way of emerging over time. Lies fade. Truth persists. If you can be patient, if you can maintain your strength long enough, the truth of who you are becomes undeniable. Not because you defended it, but because you lived it. This is the paradox of not defending yourself. In the short term, you appear to lose ground. People believe accusations. People judge you harshly. People distance themselves. It looks like a failure. But in the long term, you gain everything. Because you maintained your power. You kept your dignity. You held your standards. And over time, that consistency creates an unassailable reputation. Not perfect, not universally loved, but unassailable. Because anyone who actually engages with you, who actually experiences you, who actually works with you, will see the truth. And their direct experience will override any second-hand accusation. So the real question is not whether to pay a cost. You will pay either way. The question is, which future do you want? Do you want the future where you spent your life defending yourself, seeking approval, staying small to keep others comfortable, and ended up weak, controlled, and unhappy? Or do you want the future where you refused to defend yourself, lost some people, endured some misunderstanding, but emerged strong, free and powerful. The choice determines everything, and the choice is made in each moment. Every time you face an accusation, every time someone demands an explanation, every time you feel the urge to justify yourself, in that moment you choose weakness or strength, control or freedom, temporary comfort or permanent power. Choose strength, choose freedom, choose power. Yes, it costs something, but what it gives you is worth infinitely more than what it costs. And once you have experienced the freedom of not defending yourself, once you have tasted the power of remaining silent, once you have felt the strength of needing no one's approval, you will never go back, because you will understand that the price of defending yourself is everything, and the price of not defending yourself is nothing compared to what you gain. Chapter 7. Selective response in the art of strategic engagement mastery is not about never speaking. It is about speaking only when it serves you. The amateur reacts to everything. The master responds to nothing and everything simultaneously. This is the art of selective response, knowing when to remain completely silent and when to deliver one sentence that ends the entire conflict. This is not inconsistency. This is strategic unpredictability, and unpredictability is power. Let's establish the principle. Your response should not be determined by what others do. Your response should be determined by what serves your interests. Sometimes silence serves you. Sometimes a precise reframe serves you. Sometimes a single devastating observation serves you. The power is not in what you do. The power is in consciously choosing what you do, based on strategic evaluation rather than emotional reaction. This is the difference between being reactive and being strategic. Reactive people are controlled by external triggers. Strategic people control when and how they engage. Consider the variables that should influence your choice. First, who is the accuser? If they are insignificant, someone whose opinion has no impact on anything that matters to you, complete silence is best. Do not waste energy on people who do not matter. But if they are someone with influence, someone whose words could have practical consequences, a strategic response might be necessary, not to convince them, but to provide an alternative narrative for observers. Because when influential people speak, others listen, and leaving a false narrative unchallenged in that context can have real costs. Second, who is the audience? If the accusation happens privately, silence is almost always best. There is no audience to provide alternative perspective to. There is no reason to engage, just disappear. But if the accusation is public, especially if it is in front of people whose opinions matter professionally or socially, a response might serve you. Not a defense, but a reframe or an observation that shifts how observers interpret the situation. Because public accusations are not really about you and the accuser. They are about you and the observers. And managing observer perception sometimes requires selective speech. Third, what is the content of the accusation? If it is about your character, your intentions, your personality, silence is powerful. Because character accusations are subjective, there is no objective proof either way, and defending subjective accusations makes you look weak. But if the accusation is factual, if someone claims you did something specific that you did not do, and that false claim could have practical consequences, a simple factual correction might be necessary, not an emotional defense. Just a calm statement of fact followed by silence. Because factual accusations can be objectively disproven, and doing so once calmly with evidence if needed, then refusing to discuss it further is often the most powerful approach. Fourth, what is the emotional state of the accuser? If they are clearly emotional, agitated, desperate for a response, silence is devastating. Let them exhaust themselves. Let them look unstable. Let their emotion be the story rather than their accusation. But if they are calm, collected, and making their accusation seem reasonable, a calm reframe that exposes their motive can be effective, because calm versus calm creates a level playing field where the quality of the framing matters. And if you can reframe calmly and precisely, you can shift observer perception without appearing reactive. Now let's talk about execution. If you decide a response is strategic, it must be brief. One sentence ideally, 2 at most. Never a paragraph, never an explanation, never a justification. Just a precise observation or reframe that changes the meaning of the accusation. Then silence. Complete silence. You do not follow up. You do not elaborate. You do not answer questions about your response. You said what you said, and now you are done. This brevity is critical because long responses look defensive. Short responses look confident. And confidence is what you are projecting. The timing of your response also matters. Immediate responses often look reactive, but delayed responses can look calculated. The ideal is a pause, long enough to show you are not rattled, not so long that it looks like you needed time to craft a response. The pause should feel natural, like you heard what they said, considered whether it was worth addressing, and decided it was worth one sentence. That deliberateness communicates that you are in control, that you are choosing to respond rather than feeling compelled to respond. And that choice is power. Let's examine specific scenarios. Someone accuses you publicly in a meeting. They say something that undermines your credibility. If you are new and still building reputation, a calm factual correction might be necessary. You state the facts once, correct the record, and move on. No emotion, no defense, just information. But if you are established and people know your track record, silence can be more powerful. Because your silence combined with your track record creates cognitive dissonance for observers. They think if this person is so incompetent, why is he so calm? Why is he not defending himself? And that dissonance makes them question the accuser rather than you. Or consider a social media accusation. Someone posts something attacking you. If you have a large following that knows you, silence is best. Let your followers defend you if they choose. Let the accusation die from lack of engagement. But if you are building your brand and the accusation is visible to people who do not know you yet, one calm reframe might be strategic, not to convince the accuser, but to show observers that you are unrattled and the accusation is baseless. Then you move on. You do not get into a back and forth. You make your point and disappear. Because the goal is not to win an argument. The goal is to prevent the accusation from defining you to people who do not know you yet. The key to selective response is that it must feel strategic to you and appear effortless to others. If it looks like you agonized over whether to respond, you lose power. If it looks like you crafted your response carefully, you lose power. It must appear that you casually decided this particular accusation was worth one sentence, and then you moved on without thinking about it further. That appearance of ease is what communicates power, because powerful people do not struggle with these decisions. They make them quickly, execute them calmly, and move forward immediately. But this requires genuine internal work. You cannot appear unconcerned if you are actually deeply concerned. You cannot look casual if you are actually obsessing. So the real skill is developing genuine indifference to most attacks, combined with strategic awareness of when a response serves you. This combination of not caring what people think while caring about strategic positioning is rare. Most people either care too much about everything or claim not to care while obviously caring deeply. But true mastery is actually not caring about most things while strategically caring about a few things, and knowing the difference. Practice this skill by observing yourself. When someone attacks you, notice your impulse. Is it to immediately respond? If so, wait. Force yourself to pause. Ask yourself these questions. Does this person matter? Does this audience matter? Does this accusation have practical consequences? Does responding serve my interests? If the answers are no, remain silent. If one or more answers are yes, consider a strategic response, but always err on the side of silence. Because silence is never wrong, but response can be. Over time, this practice becomes intuition. You no longer have to consciously analyze every situation. You feel whether a response is needed, and that feeling is accurate because it is based on genuine indifference to most things, combined with strategic awareness of what actually matters. This is mastery. Not reacting to everything, not ignoring everything, but selectively engaging based on what serves your power, your goals, your life, and that selectivity is what makes you unpredictable, what makes you dangerous, what makes you powerful, because people never know if you will respond or not, and that uncertainty keeps them off balance, keeps them cautious, keeps them respectful, and respect without explanation is the highest form of power. Chapter 8. Living above explanation in a world that demands IT society will constantly demand that you explain yourself, justify your choices, defend your decisions, prove your worth. This pressure is relentless. It comes from family who question your path, from friends who doubt your direction, from colleagues who challenge your methods, from strangers who think they deserve insight into your life, and the pressure feels legitimate, because explaining feels polite, reasonable, fair. But what it actually does is transfer power from you to them. Every explanation is a negotiation. And when you negotiate your worth, you admit others have a say in how you live. You admit their approval matters. You admit their judgment has authority over you. But here is the truth. You owe no one an explanation for how you live your life. Not your parents, not your friends, not your partner, not society, no one. Your life is yours. Your choices are yours. Your path is yours. And the moment you start explaining yourself to people who had not earned that explanation, you give them power over you. You make them gatekeepers of your decisions. You make them judges of your worth. You enter their court. And in their court, they make the rules. You will always lose. Living above explanation does not mean being rude. It does not mean cutting off all communication. It does not mean refusing to share your thoughts with anyone. It means understanding the difference between sharing and justifying. Sharing is when someone has earned access to your internal world through trust, respect, and genuine care. Justifying is when someone demands access to your internal world through accusation, judgment, or social pressure. The first is gift. The second is theft. And you must learn to give gifts freely while refusing to be stolen from. Most people cannot make this distinction. They think anyone who asks deserves an answer. They think every question warrants a response. They think every judgment requires a defense. But this is slavery, slavery to others' opinions, slavery to social expectations, slavery to the constant requirement to prove you deserve to exist the way you exist. And that slavery keeps most people trapped in lives they hate, making choices they regret, becoming people they despise, all because they could not stop explaining themselves. Consider what happens when you stop. When someone questions your choice and you simply say, "This is what I am doing," without justification. When someone challenges your direction and you simply say, "This is where I am going," without explanation. When someone doubts your worth and you simply continue demonstrating your worth through results without defense. What happens? Some people get angry. They feel entitled to explanation. They think you owe them justification. They accuse you of being difficult, stubborn, closed off. Let them. Their anger is proof that they want power over you. Their frustration is evidence that they expected control. Their accusations are confessions of their own need to dominate. And when you refuse to explain, when you refuse to justify, when you refuse to defend, you refuse to be dominated. You keep your power. You maintain your autonomy. You protect your freedom. And yes, some people leave. Good. Anyone who cannot respect your boundaries does not deserve access to your life. But others respond differently. They respect you more. They see your refusal to explain as strength. They interpret your lack of justification as confidence. They understand that you are someone who does not need external validation, and those people become your real allies, your real friends, your real supporters, because they are not there for what they can take from you. They are there for who you actually are, and who you actually are does not require explanation. This is the filter. Living above explanation filters out toxic people and filters in quality people, because toxic people need you to seek their approval. They need you to explain yourself. They need you to defend your choices. Your power comes from their ability to judge you. So when you stop giving them that power, they leave. But quality people do not need you to justify yourself. They trust your judgment. They respect your autonomy. They value your independence. So when you stop explaining yourself, they do not leave. They get closer, because now they know you are real. Not performing for approval, not seeking validation, just being who you are without apology. Living above explanation also requires that you handle the internal pressure, because the pressure does not just come from others. It comes from yourself, from your conditioning, from years of being taught that you owe people explanations, from societal programming that says not explaining is rude, selfish, arrogant. This internal pressure is often stronger than external pressure, because you can avoid external pressure by avoiding certain people or situations, but you cannot avoid your own mind. And your own mind will tell you that you should explain, that you should justify, that you should make people understand. You must override this programming. You must consciously choose to not explain even when everything in you wants to. You must sit with the discomfort of being misunderstood. You must tolerate the anxiety of someone being mad at you. You must accept the fear that people will judge you harshly. And you must do all of this while refusing to relieve the discomfort by explaining. This is hard. This goes against your wiring. This feels wrong. But this is how you build internal strength. By choosing your own judgment over others' judgment, even when it is uncomfortable. Especially when it is uncomfortable. Over time, this gets easier. The discomfort decreases. The anxiety fades. The fear lessens. Because you are reconditioning yourself. You are teaching yourself a new truth. That you do not need anyone's approval to feel okay. That you do not need anyone's understanding to move forward. That you do not need anyone's validation to know your worth. And once that truth becomes your reality, once it moves from intellectual knowledge to embodied understanding, you are free. Free from the prison of others' opinions. Free from the constant requirement to justify your existence. Free to live however you want without explanation. But this freedom has a responsibility. When you live above explanation, you must actually live well. You must make good choices. You must create good results. You must become someone whose life justifies itself through results rather than through words. Because if you refuse to explain yourself while also living poorly, while making bad decisions, while creating bad outcomes, you just look like you are avoiding accountability. But if you refuse to explain yourself while living excellently, while making strong decisions, while creating impressive outcomes, you look powerful. You look confident. You look like someone who does not need to explain because your results speak for themselves. This is the standard. Your life must be your explanation. Your results must be your justification. Your character must be your defense, not your words, not your explanations, not your justifications, but your actual lived reality. And when your lived reality is strong enough, explanations become unnecessary. People see what you have built. They see who you have become. They see what you have achieved. And that seeing is more convincing than any explanation could ever be. So stop explaining yourself. Stop justifying your choices. Stop defending your path. Not because you are hiding something. Not because you are avoiding accountability. But because you are living so clearly, so powerfully, so undeniably, that your life itself is the explanation. That is the goal. That is the standard. That is what it means to live above explanation. And when you achieve it, you will understand why this is the ultimate freedom. The freedom to simply be, without justification, without defense, without explanation, just being, and letting your being speak for itself. Conclusion. The person who never needs to explain, you now possess knowledge that most people will never understand. Not because it is complex, but because it requires something most people will never develop. the strength to stand alone, the courage to be misunderstood, the discipline to remain silent when every instinct screams to speak. This is not easy knowledge. This is not comfortable knowledge. This is knowledge that costs something to apply, but what it gives you is worth infinitely more than what it costs. When you never defend yourself, you reclaim power that was stolen from you by social conditioning. You take back control of your narrative. You stop being a defendant in a court where others are judges. You step out of a game you were never meant to win, and you start playing a different game entirely. A game where you set the rules, where you define the terms, where you decide what matters and what does not. That is freedom, real freedom. The freedom to exist without constantly justifying your existence. But this freedom requires that you become someone different, someone stronger, someone more secure, someone who has built internal validation so solid that external judgment literally bounces off. You cannot fake this. You cannot perform this. You can only become this. And becoming this requires work, deep work, the work of examining why you care what others think, the work of building self-worth that does not depend on external approval, the work of developing confidence that needs no validation. This work is hard, but it is the only work that matters, because everything else in your life depends on it. Think about who you will become if you master this. You will become someone who cannot be manipulated, because manipulation requires caring about someone's opinion, and you do not care. You will become someone who cannot be controlled, because control requires the ability to threaten approval or disapproval. And approval from others is not something you need. You will become someone who cannot be broken, because breaking someone requires finding their weakness, and needing external validation was your weakness. Now it is gone. This is the person you are becoming, not someone who never feels emotion, not someone who never cares about anything, but someone who has reorganized their priorities so radically that external judgment no longer makes the list. Someone who has built an internal fortress so strong that attacks from outside cannot penetrate. Someone who has become so complete within themselves that they need nothing from anyone. And needing nothing from anyone is absolute power. Some people will call this arrogance. Let them, their opinion does not matter. Some people will call this coldness. Let them. You know what temperature you are. Some people will call this selfishness. Let them. You are finally choosing yourself after years of choosing others. And that choice, that prioritization of your own well-being over others' comfort, is not selfishness. It is health. It is strength. It is necessary. The world will continue to demand that you defend yourself. Society will continue to pressure you to explain. People will continue to expect you to justify. But you no longer have to comply. You no longer have to participate. You no longer have to play that game, because you understand what they do not. Defending yourself is weakness. Silence is strength. And the person who never needs to explain is the person who controls everything. Go forward with this knowledge. Apply it. Test it. Make it your own. And watch as your life transforms. Watch as conflict decreases. Watch as respect increases. Watch as you become someone who commands power without demanding it. Someone who creates loyalty without seeking it. someone who builds influence without trying, all because you stopped defending yourself, all because you embraced silence, all because you refused to give away your power through explanation. This is your path now, the path of the silent, the path of the strong, the path of the free. It will not be easy. It will not be comfortable. It will not be popular, but it will be yours, fully yours, completely yours, authentically yours. And that ownership is worth every cost, worth every misunderstanding, worth every lost relationship, worth every moment of discomfort, because what you gain is yourself, your power, your freedom, your life, and that is everything. Never defend yourself. Let your life be your defense. Let your results be your justification. Let your character be your explanation. And become the person who never needs to explain. That person is powerful. That person is free. That person is unstoppable. That person is you. Now go be that person. The world is waiting. Chapter 9. The evolution from strategy to identity. There is a final transformation that happens when you truly master never defending yourself. It stops being something you do and becomes something you are. It is no longer a strategy you remember to apply. It is your default state, your natural response, your automatic reaction, or rather your automatic non-reaction. This evolution from conscious strategy to unconscious identity is the ultimate goal, because when you have to think about not defending yourself, you are still giving the accusation power. But when not defending yourself is simply who you are, accusations have no power at all. This transformation does not happen overnight. It happens through repetition, through thousands of small moments where you choose silence over defense, where you choose power over validation, where you choose yourself over others' opinions. Each choice reinforces the pattern. Each moment of restraint strengthens the pathway. Each time you do not defend, you become more of someone who does not defend, until eventually defending yourself is not even an option your brain considers. It is off the table completely, like asking a fish if it wants to breathe air. Not tempting, not difficult to resist, just not relevant. When you reach this level, something profound happens. Accusations stop bothering you, not because you have built up tolerance to them, but because they genuinely do not register as threats. Someone calls you arrogant and you feel nothing. Not defensiveness, not anger, not even the urge to remain silent. Just nothing, because their opinion has no connection to your sense of self. It is like someone having an opinion about the weather, interesting maybe, relevant to them perhaps, but completely disconnected from your internal reality. This is the difference between someone who is practicing not defending themselves and someone who has become someone who does not defend themselves. The practitioner still feels the pull, still feels the urge to respond, still has to consciously choose silence. They are fighting their instincts, and that fight requires energy. But the master feels no pull, no urge, no need to consciously choose. They have rewired their instincts, and that effortlessness is what makes them truly powerful, because they are not spending energy on self-control. The energy is available for other things, for building, for creating, for living. Let's examine how to accelerate this evolution. First, you must understand that identity follows behavior. You do not become someone who does not defend by deciding to be that person. You become that person by repeatedly not defending until the behavior becomes automatic. So the path is clear. Every time you are accused, do not defend. Every time you are questioned, do not explain. Every time you are challenged, do not justify. Do this enough times and it becomes who you are, not what you do, who you are. Second, you must internalize the principle rather than memorize the tactic. The tactic is do not respond to accusations. The principle is my worth is not determined by others' opinions. When you operate from principle rather than tactic, your responses become creative rather than formulaic. You do not just repeat the same behavior. You embody the same truth in different ways depending on context. And that embodiment is what creates identity. Because identity is not about following rules. Identity is about expressing truth consistently. Third, you must reach a point where you genuinely do not care. Not where you pretend not to care. Not where you try not to care. But where you actually deeply, authentically do not care what most people think. This requires building a life so fulfilling that external validation becomes unnecessary. This requires developing internal metrics of success that are independent of social approval. This requires creating meaning that comes from within rather than from without. And this is hard. This is the work of a lifetime. But it is the only work that leads to true freedom. Let's talk about what this looks like in practice. Someone attacks you. Years ago, you would have defended yourself immediately. A few years into this practice, you would have felt the urge to defend, but consciously chosen silence. Now, having fully embodied this way of being, you do not even process it as an attack. You process it as information. This person is uncomfortable. This person feels threatened. This person is projecting something interesting, and then you move on. No emotional charge. No need to respond. No energy spent on self-control. Just observation and continuation. This is mastery. Not controlling your reactions, but not having reactions that need controlling. Not choosing power moves, but being powerful. Not performing confidence, but being confident. The difference is subtle to observers, but enormous in lived experience. Because when you are performing, you are always monitoring yourself, always checking if you are doing it right, always aware of the gap between who you are and who you are trying to appear to be. But when you have become it, there is no gap, no performance, no monitoring, just being. And this being communicates itself without words. People sense it. They feel it. They respond to it. Not because you are doing anything to make them respond, but because authentic power has a presence that cannot be faked. It changes the energy in the room. It shifts how people relate to you. It creates an invisible boundary that most people do not even try to cross. Not because they were told not to, but because something in them recognizes that crossing it would be futile. This is the aura we talked about earlier. But now it is not something you are building. It is something you have become. It emanates from you naturally, like warmth from a fire, like light from a star. Not forced, not manufactured, just present, and that presence is the ultimate protection. because people do not attack what they instinctively know they cannot hurt. They do not provoke what they sense will not react. They do not challenge what they feel is immovable. But reaching this level requires one more thing. You must let go of needing to be understood, completely, finally, permanently. This is the last attachment that keeps people from full embodiment. They can stop defending themselves. They can remain silent. They can appear unbothered. But deep down, they still want people to understand them. They still hope that eventually people will see who they really are. And that hope is a chain, a subtle chain, but a chain nonetheless. True freedom comes when you release that hope, when you accept that most people will never understand you, and that is okay. When you make peace with being misunderstood for your entire life, and that is fine. When you realize that understanding is not necessary for success, happiness, or fulfillment, and that is true. This acceptance, this release, this final letting go of the need to be seen accurately by others, this is what completes the transformation. Because now there is nothing anyone can say that touches you. Nothing anyone can believe that affects you. Nothing anyone can think that matters to you. You have become complete within yourself, and complete people do not defend. They do not explain. They do not justify. They simply exist. And their existence is justification enough. This is the final evolution. From someone who defends themselves to someone who does not defend themselves to someone who has transcended the entire concept of defense, for whom defense is not even a category, not relevant, not applicable, not necessary, ever. Welcome to the final stage. Welcome to identity. Welcome to being someone who never defends, not as a choice, but as a nature, not as a strategy, but as a truth, not as something you do, but as something you are. This is mastery, this is power, this is freedom, and this is yours if you commit to the path of silence, the path of strength, the path of never defending yourself until you become someone for whom defending is not even a possibility. That is the goal. That is the destination. And you are becoming that person right now. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations. Refuse. The world will expect justification. Deny. Because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules. Rules that place your internal peace above external approval. Rules that value your power over their comfort. Rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding. And those rules will set you free. Free from the endless cycle of seeking validation. Free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth. Free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free. And that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations. Refuse. The world will expect justification. Deny. Because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules. Rules that place your internal peace above external approval. Rules that value your power over their comfort. Rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding. And those rules will set you free. Free from the endless cycle of seeking validation. Free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth. Free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free. And that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations. Refuse. The world will expect justification. Deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules. Rules that place your internal peace above external approval. Rules that value your power over their comfort. Rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding. And those rules will set you free. Free from the endless cycle of seeking validation. Free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth. Free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free. And that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations. Refuse. The world will expect justification. Deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules. Rules that place your internal peace above external approval. Rules that value your power over their comfort. Rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding. And those rules will set you free. Free from the endless cycle of seeking validation. Free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth. Free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free. And that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations. Refuse. The world will expect justification. Deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules. Rules that place your internal peace above external approval. Rules that value your power over their comfort. Rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding. And those rules will set you free. Free from the endless cycle of seeking validation. Free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth. Free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free. And that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations. Refuse. The world will expect justification. Deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules. Rules that place your internal peace above external approval. Rules that value your power over their comfort. Rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding. And those rules will set you free. Free from the endless cycle of seeking validation. Free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth. Free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free. And that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations. Refuse. The world will expect justification. Deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules. Rules that place your internal peace above external approval. Rules that value your power over their comfort. Rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding. And those rules will set you free. Free from the endless cycle of seeking validation. Free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth. Free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free. And that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations, refuse. The world will expect justification, deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules, rules that place your internal peace above external approval, rules that value your power over their comfort, rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding, and those rules will set you free, free from the endless cycle of seeking validation, free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth, free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free. And that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations, refuse. The world will expect justification, deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules, rules that place your internal peace above external approval, rules that value your power over their comfort, rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding, and those rules will set you free, free from the endless cycle of seeking validation, free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth, free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free, and that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations, refuse. The world will expect justification, deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules, rules that place your internal peace above external approval, rules that value your power over their comfort, rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding, and those rules will set you free, free from the endless cycle of seeking validation, free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth, free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free, and that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations, refuse. The world will expect justification, deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules, rules that place your internal peace above external approval, rules that value your power over their comfort, rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding, and those rules will set you free, free from the endless cycle of seeking validation, free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth, free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free, and that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations, refuse. The world will expect justification, deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules, rules that place your internal peace above external approval, rules that value your power over their comfort, rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding, and those rules will set you free, free from the endless cycle of seeking validation, free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth, free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free, and that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations. Refuse. The world will expect justification. Deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules. Rules that place your internal peace above external approval. Rules that value your power over their comfort. Rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding. And those rules will set you free. Free from the endless cycle of seeking validation. Free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth. Free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free. And that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend. Resist. The world will demand explanations. Refuse. The world will expect justification. Deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules. Rules that place your internal peace above external approval. Rules that value your power over their comfort. Rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding. And those rules will set you free. Free from the endless cycle of seeking validation. Free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth. Free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free. And that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations. Refuse. The world will expect justification. Deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules. Rules that place your internal peace above external approval. Rules that value your power over their comfort. Rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding. And those rules will set you free. Free from the endless cycle of seeking validation. Free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth. Free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free. And that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations. Refuse. The world will expect justification. Deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules. Rules that place your internal peace above external approval. Rules that value your power over their comfort. Rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding. And those rules will set you free. Free from the endless cycle of seeking validation. Free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth. Free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free. And that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself. The world will try to make you defend, resist. The world will demand explanations. Refuse. The world will expect justification. Deny, because you are no longer playing their game. You are living by different rules. Rules that place your internal peace above external approval. Rules that value your power over their comfort. Rules that prioritize your freedom over their understanding. And those rules will set you free. Free from the endless cycle of seeking validation. Free from the exhausting requirement to prove your worth. Free from the crushing weight of others' expectations. You are free, finally free, completely free. And that freedom is the greatest gift you will ever give yourself.